And they told us that she was going to be, she had to go to Children's Hospital. Time was of the essence, and that if they could get a bed for her at Children's, she would go there. If not, she would go to New England Medical Center. And she did go to Children's Hospital and had surgery when she was about 8 hours old. Once she left Children's, she then was under the care of my family physician. So I begged him to let her come home. So he agreed that he would. So I told them at the hospital we were taking her home, and the nurses said to me, well, we're glad you're taking her home. We wish you luck. We don't want her here because we don't know how to take care of her. So then they told us that we had to have a visiting nurse come in. So I said, okay. So we had the visiting nurse. She would come in 3 times a week. And she would say, she'd come in, she'd wash her hands, she'd look at the baby, and she'd say to me, now don't get too attached to her, because you know these children don't live very long. They decided that at Children's Hospital that they wanted to get some parents of children with spina bifida together so that we could get to meet each other and share, you know. I think they really felt like we needed some counseling. But there were 5 families, and the kids all went to Children's Hospital, and we would meet once a month. And what we found is that it was great to be with other parents and to be able to share stories. And when you're with people that understand what you're going through, that's more than any counselor can do for you. And that's what we got out of each other. We would all get together and we'd all contribute to this newsletter that we had. Everybody would write for it, and then somebody would put it together, and Dick would have it printed at work, and sure, the Smarts that lived on the next street, she would come over and we would put it together, and we all pitched in for stamps, and we would mail it out. And we decided at one point that we were going to get together, and we found out there was a group in Maine, and it was a few families now that had actually joined us, and one of them was the Smarts on the next street, and people that we knew, we met, and we would say, well, you know, do you want to come? We have these meetings, and they'd say, sure, you know. And we had what we call the Daisy Caravan. So we all met together, and we put daisies on the antennas of our car, and we all went to Maine, and we met in a park. And this was our first outing with families, with the actual, all of the kids and the families. And it was wonderful because what we found is that the kids with spina bifida, they all interacted. And then the parents certainly enjoyed each other, and you know, you see that you're not the only one who lives like this, there's other people. And then the able-bodied children, siblings, they all played, and it gave them the opportunity to see that they're not the only ones that live like this either, because it takes its toll on everybody. And so that was our first outing.
Somewhere along the line, I don't remember what happened because I was not part of the organization much in the later 1980s or early 90s, but still contributed and still got the newsletter. I saw that they started having adults with disabilities, with spina bifida, on the board. First one I probably noticed was Brendan Sullivan. He had just graduated from college and was working in Boston, and he was a new board member. So I actually called him up and invited him to lunch, and they just wanted to meet him and talk a little bit about the organization and what I knew about it.
I also thought and felt that in the spina bifida community, it was often not the person with spina bifida who was, taking leadership roles or taking um, oversight, kind of in giving opinion or giving a voice to the cause or to the issues or challenges that an individual with spina bifida lives with on a daily basis. So reached out at the time. We were a completely voluntary board. There were two other individuals with spina bifida on the board, Jen Kuhar and Corey Couture, and just felt like, okay, this is my opportunity, along with Jen and Corey, to give the voice of the individual with spina bifida. And we were at various points in our life, so even in that realm or that landscape, we were in different phases of our life and could give different, lived experiences and current challenges or issues. With some great leadership and some great development efforts, we were able to get to the point where we are today with a paid staff. I felt like early in my time it was important that the organization provide social opportunities, which were great and much needed again. But those social opportunities brought that connection, with spina bifida being at the center of it in the conversation, and those opportunities for shared experiences, which I think is a huge part of why you want to be part of the organization and the connectedness. I think at our core, everybody wants to feel connected to someone else, and we have common connections around spina bifida.
But I think that time when we adults with spina bifida were first brought to the board, part of the objective for that was to um, help transition the organization from being very parent focused and parent run to bringing in more of us who were growing up more and more, you know, up until the early 60s. I forget what year it is that the shunt was invented, but so many young people with spina bifida would die very young because of hydrocephalus, and just the technology of healthcare wasn't as advanced and able to manage a lot of their issues. So suddenly there was this crop of us that were growing into adulthood and um, finding our way out into the world as professionals. And yeah, it was really exciting to start to be part of that conversation where we felt like we had more of a voice in the organization. Not that I particularly thought about the fact that I didn't have a voice prior to that, but I could see that that's what the organization was trying to do, was to open up and bring in more voices of those of us who were actually living with spina bifida. Not that parents and family members aren't also living with it, but in our own bodies. You understand what I mean? Um, so yeah, it was a really exciting transitional time, and we just were so busy doing all kinds of things. We started the golf tournament. We managed to get involved with the Boston Marathon. That was huge and really exciting. And under the direction of or the presidency of Brian Packard, we raised a massive amount of money for the organization. I think the MSBA had always sort of managed its financials relatively well, but the marathon was just this huge infusion, and I feel like it really kind of gave us a lot of momentum that just pushed us forward. It was great. It was really exciting. It was really, really fun to be part of that time.
So they added on professional staff in Ellen Dugan, and I think the combination of those things, it was like it's like a second life for the organization. I don't want to say born again, but it was like the organization was new again. And so in many ways, that organization that started in '71 and the organization that came about with professional staff and more adults with spina bifida on the board are there's a continuum, but there's a real change. And you see that in the range of programs, the fact that the teenage program, Teenage Empowerment Program, was one of the first programs to get national recognition that was developed right here at the Spina Bifida Association of Greater New England. So it's really become a different organization.
And we both, my husband and I, joined the board. And so we were both on the board for several years. And we had a wonderful group on our board, and we did a lot of amazing things. We raised money, we had events, we started having a holiday party every year. We got involved with the Boston Marathon. We were able to hire our first executive director. Lots of things happened in those days. So that was around 2003 to 2009 or so, I think it was. So for our family, my husband served for several years and became the chair or the president, and then he left the board, and then I got back on the board. So we have been part of the board total for, I don't know how many years it was, maybe 16 years or 17 years or something, that one of us was always on the board. And that didn't mean the other person or the rest of the family wasn't involved. We went to almost every event, and we went to the national conference, and it's been amazing. It's been really, really wonderful for our family, and I hope for other families too, because we met so many people along the way.
So we did a couple of reconnaissance visits, and by sheer coincidence, one of the first ones we did, they were having a gathering in Maine. Spagni was having a gathering in Maine of Maine families with spina bifida to sort of determine whether Maine would now be part of the footprint. So that weekend that we happened to be in Maine trying to decide, should we move here and meeting people, we attended that event because we're like, this is crazy. We have to, it's such perfect timing. We have to go. And Ellen was there. She's the first person we met. And so that was our intro to Spagni and Maine. And so immediately we were like, perfect. We're coming into a great community. The Spina Bifida community in Maine is a bunch of tough, resilient New Englanders. So we're like, that's great. We'll fit right in.
A little redundant.
Yeah, exactly. So it was right, before we even moved here. And then we moved up when she was 2.5, and this one was brand spanking new. And we had already become plugged in.
Utilize all the phenomenal resources that they give you. They really are truly helpful. I don't think that we would be where we are today if it wasn't for the outstanding support that we got from the Spina Bifida group of New England.
First and foremost, for my family, the opportunity for the Brace Fund was, very helpful and critical. We were like many people then, or many families then, we were a single parent source of income. My mother stayed at home with my brother and I, so any financial resources to support your child and your family when you have a disability is gratefully appreciated. So that was helpful. The other was the newsletter. I know that newsletter of information from my mother as she continued her own education in this. And again, kind of becoming that informed patient, or informed on behalf of me, the patient, coupling that information that Spina Bifida of Massachusetts provided with her now knowledge and information from the medical professionals through my continued care. I think it helped her gain a better understanding and scope of the disability, the path forward, the challenges, hurdles, and opportunities, frankly, for me going forward, which was, I think, a wealth of information for her.
It was also really fun to do things like get together and go out to dinner once a month or every other month with other adults with spina bifida, and just go to a restaurant and chit chat. And like that experience I had in my first conference, being able to have these conversations with people that you just don't get to have in other contexts.
Our daughter has benefited because she has made
long-term friendships and short-term friendships. People come and go in your life. So for her, I think that means knowing that she's not alone, that there are lots of people just like her, and that has made her a very confident young person who feels very comfortable in her skin and who she is. Doesn't like people to stare at her, but it's not as hard to deal with when you have a community of people who say, yeah, I know what you mean. Here's how I handle that. These are my strategies. And, you talk about frustrating things with your community and your friends, and then you move on to other things that have nothing to do with that. And so it just makes you stronger. And I think that's what it did for her.
So I would say initially for me, it was mainly about the parent to parent connection. But now as Lucy gets older, it's becoming not only the parent to parent connection, but also the child to other children connection. And one of the things that's challenging is, I mean, Lucy goes to a relatively small school. So there's really not any other kids like her. She's the only one with spina bifida. Really the only person when you go out in the community. Occasionally we'll see kids with leg braces or an adult in a wheelchair, but we just don't see it a lot. And I feel like as she gets older, having those friendships and those relationships just become more and more critical. And I can't wait until she's old enough to get really into like the empowerment program, and really further that even more. But just in going to the picnics and going to, the holiday party and the picnic, being able to have those relationships is critical. And we've been able to build some of those relationships outside of Spagni too, which has been helpful, but they've really provided the platform, which has kind of gotten us to get to know people and get to know them further.
The organization is really, really good about getting back to me with resources. I feel anyway, now that I've been dealing with even if I had a question on a grant, we're looking to do a bathroom, the organization will email me the next day with some grant information. Asking questions to the organization, they're always really, really good about providing the information. And I feel the website also provides us with plenty of information as well.
I think also we learned too about, all the different adaptive sports, and just finding out how many of the folks that were there got together every Saturday, at the Mass Hospital School, and Sean joined that group.
Yep.
And they played basketball, and sometimes they
hockey.
did hockey or lacrosse.
Yep.
Right? You did lacrosse, softball. There was just all kinds, and we never would have known that was even available
If it wasn't for SBA-G&E.
Exactly.
And the best weekend for the boys.
Exactly. I also think the other thing too with the best weekend, for me, was talking to the other parents, and meeting, the other folks that were there, and finding out, of the boys that were there, they were all about the same age, and they all were part of the spina bifida clinic at Children's, and they all had the same doctors for the most part, and we were able to just kind of talk, as a group, and hey, what are you doing about this? And what are you doing about that? So while the boys were off, either swimming or playing basketball, the parents were kind of getting together. It was just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I smile every time I think about the times that we participated in BEST, because it really and truly was a wonderful weekend.
Really for us that first summer, June of 2016, maybe, we went to an event at the Pappas Hospital down in Canton. And that was the first walk and roll we did. And the in-person for us, we met a few families that had kids a couple of years older than Liam, or, a couple of years to 10 years old. And it was just a really great experience for us to meet, see this great community come together, see a lot of kids across the bell curve of spina bifida, and we still had no idea where Liam was going to land, and also realized it didn't matter where he landed, it's going to be fine. And then we met all these lovely families, and we said, okay, they're just like us, it's going to be fine. And that's kind of but it came back to that connections, that being part of a community, that, okay, like this is our community now, and let's get into it and let's embrace it.
But really, if you're dealing with spina bifida on varying degrees and involved in a family that has it, there's not a ton of people with spina bifida. That's just, the numbers aren't enormous. So coming together would be very helpful for everybody. So I think everybody who is affected by spina bifida should join, because it doesn't require a tremendous amount.
The biggest assets and things that it does best is provides a community, provides, as many answers as it can provide, and helps direct the person to the resources when they don't have the answers. That to me is ultimately the biggest benefit. Having a place for all of us to be, and having a group of people that understand and are in similar boat. I think to me that's the biggest benefit of all.
We had signed up for a few of the online parties, and we got a really cool box of music supplies and shakers and scarves and cookies and all sorts of cool stuff to get us ready for the party. And I really love that because it showed all the thought, time, and effort that went into planning these things for kids. And I loved that Kemper was involved also. So it was something that he could do as well. And the music class was really great. And it was nice to see the different parents, and the kids, and so many people involved. So that was one of the things we did. And then the Christmas party was really mind-blowing. Nice. I mean, we filled up, I think, 2 pages on Zoom of all families in the area. And it just really helps you feel like you're not alone.
I felt like when we came up already, the baseline in New England was more of that empowerment sensibility. I mean, we right out of the gate met people in Maine who went hiking every weekend, or were woodsmen, or, loved the snow and winter sports. It was really important to me that SPAGMI be about empowerment and supporting folks who are living their lives and just helping them make it slightly easier to do just that.
I tried to go to all of the events, or as many as I could. Some of my favorites are a holiday party. Bling is another great one. I even enjoy the picnic, even though it's a little bit more of a laid back event. I actually think it's a great idea that we're combining now the walk and roll and the picnic. I think just the connection to community and other people who have similar challenges, and getting advice from each other. And, just being in an environment where, you don't have to explain.
I'm fortunate that I had parents who pushed me to be independent, and I went away to college at first for a year and a half before I had to leave to have surgery. But I had parents who pushed me, and I want to help facilitate just independence all around. Parents giving them up and the kids knowing that it's okay, all of that.
But I really would love to see more with adults with spina bifida. So, more programming with that, and more opportunity to hopefully get together in person again. That would be wonderful. And just kind of, I guess, building on that community. It's been really exciting to me to see just how many young adults there are, just in Massachusetts, but in all of New England. Like I said, growing up, not knowing anybody, I felt really alone.
But I hope that, we can do this work and lay this foundation to have a really strong Maine community. So I think it's really important. There's so many people in rural parts of the state that don't know about SPAGMI. Even people who aren't in rural parts of the state I've met recently. I'm like, oh, do you know about this? By some coincidence or some conversation, I meet a new person with spina bifida, and maybe they're not aware that there are programs and that there are events, and we do a lot of fun things, And now in the last couple of years, we've had so many more opportunities to connect virtually. which I think is going to be the thing that ties everyone together here, is that we can do this, like we don't have to be in person.
I just wish I didn't spend so much time being upset and angry. And waiting so long. I don't want to say I waited too long, but my girlfriend said, call that day. And I'm like, no, it's before Christmas. I don't want to ruin anybody's Christmas. She's like, you're not going to. They're going to be there to help you. And if I had done that, I probably wouldn't have had those few days of literally just crying and unsure and not knowing, and just connected sooner. Because as soon as I talked to those families, it was okay. Like I felt a little bit sense of calm. So the education from people that had gone before me, that had children that were older, and then meeting those children, really, really helped.
I wish I knew that there were people out there who were like me, who would understand what I'm going through, who would support me, I guess, in ways that, only someone who's has the same or similar lived experiences can kind of support you and lift you up. I guess I wish I kind of knew growing up that my voice matters, and that I do have a voice, and positive changes can happen, and you can make that happen.
I would just tell my younger self definitely to be involved and be proud. Because the more open I am about things and the more people I meet who have similar experiences to me, the easier everything is. And I wish I didn't spend, some of those younger years being like, I don't want spina bifida, because I have it. It's here. It's not going anywhere. And it can be all these experiences can be used for good. We have a great platform and a great space to be able to talk and be able to lift each other up. And I think just being I'm going to accept that I have this and I'm going to use it in a positive way.
I think one of the things that I would tell the next generation is to even if you do compare yourself, find what, I guess, find the beauty in what makes you you, rather than finding or looking for what you lack compared to somebody else. I think that probably would have been a very powerful piece of advice from me at a very young age from somebody like